Let's jump in. Welcome back to our August community call. These calls are hosted on the first Wednesday of every month. We primarily want to make sure that everybody is remaining up to date on all things IMMY, staying educated on changes, and in some cases just getting us all up to speed because we're constantly onboarding new people. This is a great place for people who aren't using IMMY, people who have been using IMMY from the beginning, and everybody that falls in between. So sometimes topics are more or less for you, but there's a couple of segments through every call that hopefully you can find something in all of it. So we're going to jump in today. Usually I have a partner in crime, but today it's just me, so you're stuck with me. But I work alongside the lovely Tara Rummer, who is currently at Build It Live in Jersey City. And so I am here running the calls, but I have several people from the IMMY team, as well as Anthony, who is practically IMMY team, but a contributor to the IMMY team. So we have a lot in store today, and we will jump into that shortly. Before that, I wanted to make everybody aware. I know some people are on this call because you either spoke to Tara, you saw posts, you talked to me at a recent trade show, and you are interested in the community call from last month, particularly around ImmyBot 101, which is just making sure that we are all on the same page on the fundamentals as we start to build on that. So just a reminder, community.immy.bot is our discourse where we put all of the call notes. The community call tab there will allow you to watch the recording if you missed that or you wanted to send it to somebody else on your team. Where is IMMY? Where's the team going to be traveling for the... What's that? Oh, I love when the teams do that. It gives you the nice warning when somebody's joined. So IMMY is going to be traveling. The team is traveling for the next couple of weeks. We get a little bit of a break in September before the crazy conference season. So this is kind of our shows finishing out the summer. I will be in Houston and in Dallas next week doing 2 hosted dinners through the channel program. If you're interested, if you're local to those areas and you're interested in joining us for dinner, or if I can take you out to lunch in those areas earlier in that day, send me an email, anna.lang@immy.bot, and I would love to take care of you while I'm in town and go see your office or hang out. That would be great. But those events through channel program, I guess, are private. So we can try to get you a seat at the table or host you earlier in the day, but wanted to make you aware that the team will be there in Houston and in Dallas next week. That Friday, Tara and I will be flying to Australia for the IT Nation Connect event in Australia. We have 10% of our users that are logging in from APAC region. So we want to make sure that we show face there. We'll also be at the peer groups. If anybody from Australia is watching the recording of this, we'll see you soon. September 3rd will be our community call for next month. If you don't have the invite to that, let me know. I will get that forwarded on to you. And then we will be in Canada September 7th through the 9th for CanadaCon. I do not know a ton about that event, but I know it is one of the larger MSP shows in Canada. So if anybody's watching from Canada, Tara will be near you very soon. Okay. Agenda for the day. I'm going to show you guys the new website and IMMY. I'm going to have Anthony walk through an automation highlight. And then Mark Gomez, our service delivery manager, is going to walk us through the updated docs page, how to use the new navigation, and all good things there. And then much awaited, probably what people want to talk about the most, is RBAC. Where is RBAC? When is RBAC coming? Can we have it now? All those questions will be answered very shortly with Colin. one of our senior devs. And then we'll have time for a Q&A if anybody has any questions regarding role-based. Anthony will have to drop, so any automation questions, we'll leave space to do those up there right after he talks, and then we'll do a RBAC Q&A. I'll do our helpful resources and flash the September invite for anybody who needs to get added to that. And then the office hours will start. We will dive into any specific support issues or specific ticket problems that you're having. Members of the support team will be staying on afterwards for that. There is no agenda for the office hours. It's run primarily by your questions and your support tickets. So if you do stay on, just a fair warning, it's a open agenda. So bring your topics, or you might sit in silence. And some people like to do that. Or if Darren jumps on, you might end up vibe coding. So there's always that available to you. So I am going to see if this will let me escape without giving away all of my secrets. And I can show you guys this new ImmyBot website. If you haven't been on it, it's beautiful. It's not only does it have new graphics, somebody said it looks like Immy got on Ozempic. I don't know if I would go that far, but Immy did get more of a youthful uplift. He's not so like sad and droopy and lethargic. He now has a little bit of energy, which is good because he has a lot of deployments to do. But what will be helpful to anybody here who's already an Immy user, because you don't need to be convinced to purchase Immy, is in this features, there is the script library. If you're just quickly on your phone and want to see what's in the repository, this has all of them, which is really cool. Integrations are being up to date here, which you'll see those in platform, so you wouldn't need to go there for here. And then this resources page, this is where we're going to be eventually adding the community calls more formally. There will also be more articles written by different members of the team doing different things. So this will be a good resource to have access to as we do podcasts or testimonials or interviews, different things like that. They'll be housed here, which will be great. Let's see. Any questions on the new website? Open AI generated images everywhere. These images have been well curated through using AI and an illustrator working together to. You have to, as many of you know, it is just as much work to try to convince AI to not take a very large what is the word? Liberties when creating images. So you have to rein that robot right back in. But it was interesting to see the team quickly pulled together these images and all of the different iterations that went through the whole process. But it was much longer than I anticipated because I thought they would just throw them in AI and it would be done. And that was not the case. There was so much editing and so much Photoshop that went into after they got out of AI. All right, I'm going to pass it on to Anthony to show us an automation highlight of something that he is using at his MSP currently. And I will stop sharing my screen. I think you have access to share yours, Anthony.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we are trying to get all of our customers to upgrade their machines to Windows 11, as I'm sure lots of you are, before the October deadline. And so we build out some internal reporting inside of Halo, expose that in our self-service portal to the client so that they can see what hardware is out of date. They can request a quote from that screen. And we used Immy to track if the hardware is compatible or not. So I'm going to share my screen and walk through this. So if you didn't know, there's a task in IMMY called Windows 11 Hardware Readiness that Dimitri wrote. It runs the Microsoft provided script to detect if the machine is capable of running Windows 11. I went in and modified that to add this webhook URL. So you can basically send the result of the capability status to an external system. So we are using N8N in this example. So that webhook comes into this flow. We look up the computer inside of Halo and then set a flag on the device, which is basically a custom field to display, that asset is capable of Windows 11 or not capable. And so what that looks like in the self-service portal is this, and they get a list of all the devices, the make, model, the version of OS that is currently on the machine, and then they get a true false on this supports Windows 11. We're also pulling in the warranty data from a new tool that isn't exactly out yet by the CyberDrain guys, same people who made SIP, to do warranty lookups. So all of that information on one page for the client to look at, and then they have a button here to request a quote, which calls another N8N workflow, creates an opportunity in Halo so that we can quote out a new machine to the client without too much manual intervention. That's pretty much it. We just started using this with our clients, and so far the feedback has been good. But
What was the lift to get this up and running for you guys?
it was a lot of work, honestly. But I'm happy to share the N8N workflows and the SQL to get those reports out of Halo if anyone's interested.
Does anyone have any questions?
Uh, what specifically the task or the N8N flow are you looking to see? Okay. Cool.
Is this only, I mean, you've only set it up with Halo because that's who you use for your PSA, but could you do the same thing with other PSAs, or is this because of Halo's functionality specifically?
Yeah. You could make it work for any PSA just by modifying the workflow in N8N to connect it to, ConnectWise instead of Halo, which, by the way, has built-in connectors for ConnectWise.
Sweet. If you guys have any more questions for Anthony, you can throw those in the chat, and I'll make sure to send those on if he drops before then. Colin, would you like for me to share the RBAC docs page, or are you going to share your screen?
Yeah, you can share the docs page, but I'll share my screen in Drive.
Totally. Whenever you're ready, it's all you.
Right,
and
cool.
then I will send this docs page in the chat for everyone else to follow along on all things RBAC. Go ahead, Colin.
Awesome. Thank you. For those that don't know me, my name's Colin. I'm one of the developers at ImmyBot, and I'm here to give you all an update on RBAC. So first, the link that was shared is in our docs website. It's a brief outline of where we're at with the project, where we're headed, what's already been done, so you can follow along as I go through this. I'm going to use this as my to-do list for talking points. So one, I want to start off with, we have a lot of requirements for RBAC that have manifested over the past few months. The project has probably been in active development for about 8 to 10 months of serious development, and we've gotten a lot done. but the feature itself is a massive undertaking. So I want to be clear in what we have completed so far and where we're headed and what still needs to be done. So we broke up the project into a phased approach where we wanted to battle test the implementation of RBAC behind the scenes as we were working on it. So the permission system that exists today is very naive. You're really one of four things. You're an MSP admin, you're an MSP user, you're a tenant admin, and you're a tenant user. Those are the four roles that exist, and we wanted to introduce RBAC that utilized those four built-in roles so we could map the exact system today into a working RBAC system behind the scenes without having you as the user needing to do anything. It seems like a really good opportunity for us to QA and battle test the transition to RBAC before we actually exposed custom roles and other RBAC enhancements that we wanted to introduce as well. So we're done. We're done with that. That was pretty much the majority of the entire project so far. That was touched every aspect of the code base, and that is finally behind us. And the work we had to do for this gave us probably at least 50 to 60% of the work that needed to be done for all of these other projects. So the next goals that we're trying to complete are going to have much shorter time frames because the work involved is much smaller. So goal number 2, we wanted to expose the RBAC in a UI that represented what we're trying to deliver, but maintaining the feature parity we have today. So that's where we're currently at, and it's behind a feature flag. We are, allowing people to play with it if they want. It's again maintaining feature parity with what we have today. So you got a users page that shows you the users in your system and what roles they have, and so these are built in. They're mapped to the 4 core built-in roles that we had in our permission system today, and we also have some off one-hand roles that are being transitioned from preferences. So some of y'all might recognize that we had application preferences to give non-MSP and non-admins access to the computer terminal. So whenever that preference is checked, whenever you're migrating to this new system, it's going to assign that user this computer terminal role, and that preference goes away. So again, just a migration to the new RBAC system. And we had to add these to maintain that existing one-off support for a few preferences, application preferences, and then details on the user page where you could select whether they could view cross-tenant deployments and things like that. So this is pretty much done. I think what's only left is probably just getting some QA and testing done, adding some more information to these tables. Maybe the data was created, some role assignment dates. The net new functionality that I think gets delivered with this as it currently stands is actual insight into what your users can do today. So we have this role page that shows you all the different permissions that we've implemented in the system, and each permission can be assigned to this role. So if it's checked off, it's available for the role. And so you can now go in and be like, okay, what can my tenant admin actually do? We can see that. We can go into the tenant administrator role, show only the granted permissions, and see what's checked off. So this is, like I said, pretty much done. This isn't, I think, what most people are happy about. I mean, this really doesn't give you anything special. The special stuff is what we're working on right now. So I'll start going over that. That is goal number 3 and goal number 4. So goal number 3 is role assignments, but scoped to tenants. So right now, we hard-coded these roles to be scoped in accordance with what is in production today. So if you're an MSP admin, or let's look at this one, the tenant user, the tenant admin role. Tenant admins today are restricted to only have access to the tenant that they belong to. That is just a hard-coded thing in the back end. You can't change it. Same with MSP. MSP is scoped to all tenants in the system. What we're going to be introducing is a much more comprehensive way to manage what scope of a role you're assigning a user. And so that's what this new role assignment scope is going to be. The role assignment scope is going to cover we tried to cover as much ground as possible for what people might want to do. And so these are the 5 scopes that we came up with. Owner is synonymous with you are the owner of ImmyBot. You can see everything in the system. It is its highest level scope of permission. MSP scope would be the next level down. And this is to accommodate scenarios where you as an owner might have multiple MSP tenants. You might be a person who acquires tenants, or you just have multiple MSP tenants segregated in Azure. And you only want to give your users of a particular MSP access to that MSP and only that MSP's customers. So that's what this is going to allow you to do. You're going to be able to say, I want to give this role to this specific MSP, which will limit the access to only that MSP tenant and the MSP customers. If you had other MSP customers and other MSP tenants, the user would not be able to see this. Tag is going to be our catch-all for most of the weird scenarios that you might have that might be specific to your company and how you do things. Right now, we have the ability to add tags to a bunch of objects, tenants, computers, tenants being, in this case, one that you can use to grant access to resources. So if you had, 6 tenants tagged with US West, maybe it's region-based, you could grant a user a role that is only scoped to tenants that are in the US West tag. So again, that's just the next level of hierarchy when it comes to granting a scope level of access to a role. And then the final 2 are the more specific ones. Specific tenant is going to be just a one-off. You select the tenant, the user can now manage or has that role in the scope of that one tenant. And then user's tenant scope is what the MI is in terms of what a tenant administrator can do today. So all of your non-MSP customers that have access to your instance, they would get mapped to this user's tenant scope where they can only see the role or they can only perform operations that are given in the role in the scope of their own tenant. I think this is what most people probably need in conjunction with some of the resource stuff, which we're also doing. And I'd like to point out that the majority of the work for this has been done. We don't have a UI fully built out yet, but that is not going to take nearly as long as a lot of the work that went into the backend portion of this. So I'll briefly talk about the resource scope because that is also a hard requirement for a lot of people. One of the earliest and most common use cases for RBAC is I don't want to give my techs admin or access to our domain controllers. That seems pretty standard. So what we're going to do first with resource scopes is limit the resource scope feature to dealing with computers. And right now we have 3 different ways that we're going to allow you to scope resources or computer resources. You can provide a specific computer. So you can say this user can or cannot access this one computer. Or you can do it by tag where this user can access all the computers that are under a certain tag. And then computer type is going to be the one that is a built-in type that is specific to the type of computer. So at this point, you would be able to say, okay, this user has the tenant admin role for all computers, or rather all workstations and portable devices, whatever type you select. So that would exclude domain controllers from that user's permissions. And it might not be mentioned in here, but we do plan on allowing to specify allow assignments and deny assignments. They can both be, like, everything could be accomplished to allow assignments, but denying certain permissions could be useful in a various scenarios where if you want to give complete access to someone to something, but then exclude maybe just one particular resource or one particular type of resource. And then the final goal, which is going to be worked on in tandem with these other goals, is custom roles, which is probably the closest to completion outside of just releasing a general UI that shows the new functionality and what is coming. So custom roles is going to allow you to actually create your own roles that have the permission set that you specifically need. So it's tailored permissions and roles to whatever your company actually needs. And then this will play in nicely with everything because you'll have hopefully everything you need to granularly give your users the access that they need. As far as the timeline for releasing all of these features and getting them all done, it's kind of hard to say. We're still in a stage where we're heavily testing everything, and we're we're ensuring that the requirements that have been given to us are correct and making sure that we're not missing any requirements. So with that said, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover with this document, but I would love to hear from anyone if what I have described and what is outlined in this document does not meet the requirements you have, or if it does cover your scenario, I'd like to hear that as well. And of course, I can answer any other questions that y'all might have.
So
But
it's
that's it for me.
correct, Colin, that you can't and you won't be able to enable anything that when it's available, it will be automatically available and updated within the actual instance.
The initial transition is going to automatically map a user to an existing built-in role. So it's going to be one of these 4 roles. And then optionally, it'll have some other roles if that user had a certain preference enabled that granted them access to it. So that's going to be the immediate transition. And then once custom roles and role assignments are in play, you'll actually be able to go modify the scope at which this role is applied. So right now, the MSP admin role is granting the scope to all tenants. The tenant admin and tenant user role is granting the scope to only that user's tenant, if that makes sense.
Yep. This question came in when you were on goal number 3, so it was related to the conversation there. How does this work with parent-child tenants? Did you
Right.
cover that?
Right. So parent-child tenants was introduced for a different reason that I don't believe we'll need to take into account with the RBAC system. So tenants today can have a parent tenant, and parent tenants was introduced for a deployment feature where I wanted to create a deployment that deploys this particular resource to the parent tenant and all child tenants. That was the only reason this column was introduced. We have another column that is the owner tenant that is not represented here that will be surfaced. And the owner tenant is what dictates this is an MSP, and any tenant that has an owner that is set to that MSP is considered a customer. So we're going to be using that to drive this MSP scope right here.
Sweet. I will open it up to you all. If you want to unmute your mic and ask questions or give feedback, please do. And if you don't feel comfortable, I will be your voice if you will just type it in the chat.
So I joined a little late, so sorry if I maybe missed something, but we do have some clients that have their own on-prem IT. Would this come into play to be able to really like restrict the IT that they have on-prem, and then we're kind of the outside that's doing supplemental kind of support, but giving them access to ImmyBot to not only just looking at their tenant, but maybe even restricting some of the permissions that they have as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much one of the core requirements that we have is we want to give any of your customers who want to have a co-managed experience with ImmyBot access to Immy. So you could say you can manage their own tenant, which you could do today, but this RBAC system is going to allow you as the owner at a higher level to say they can also manage other tenants, or they can only manage workstations and portable devices at their own tenant. They can't see domain controllers. They can't manage or view certain types of resources in the system. It's going to really give you everything that is exposed in IMMY. We wanted to add a permission for, so we just covered all of our bases. I think we have over 100 different permissions, or we call them capabilities here. So you would be able to go in and really fine tune what your co-managed user would be able to access.
Awesome. Thank you.
I will say that a technical challenge that we've been having to constantly consider is role explosion or permission explosion, where at the end of the day, when we release this system, let's say you wind up creating 100 different assignments for a user. And however you got there, let's just say that happened. In the back end, we have to consider all of the different things that are granted for each individual assignment and make sure that we're constructing a query that actually is performant in the database and that doesn't just completely kill performance. So a lot of our efforts have also gone into just really considering we're not digging ourselves into a hole, that we introduce a system that becomes unusable once you fully build it out to your own needs.
I have a question about like the resource scopes. Is that like if you only allow them to access workstation portal devices, but say they're able to create deployments and stuff, I assume they could only deploy targeting the resources they have access to
That's
in the
correct.
tenant? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. I imagine there might be some scenarios where we'll probably need to introduce some new permissions as use cases arise. But right now, the assumption is if you can only, let's say, manage, because there's a difference between viewing and manage. You can view a computer, maybe you can't manage it. If you can only manage workstations and portable devices, then that infers that you cannot create a deployment or deploy anything for those computers.
I guess the only other question is, I assume once it goes live, will there be like a email or inbox to provide feedback just for RBAC, or will there be another like way to just general feedback? Because I assume we'll run into issues and use cases that we might need to work with you guys on.
Did I understand that correctly? You're asking how
Just like if for feedback, as once it actually goes live, if there'll be like a dedicated feedback, like a thread or something on the Discord, or we'll just submit general feedback. I don't know.
I imagine I don't have a specific answer, but I do imagine that when we go to launch, we're gonna have that prepared for you. That we're gonna have either information about where to provide feedback, either through a support ticket or Discord. Usually Drew is pretty good, and the support team are pretty good about rolling out that type of information when we release a large feature like this.
We'll take that as an action item to make sure we have an aggregated place for that feedback to live, and especially as things roll out, we'll need to have a landing page with updates. Maybe it lives in the stocks page, but updates as new features become available or bugs are found throughout it going live and people using it in their own unique ways. So that'll be good. We'll keep sending any questions you have in the chat. The team will be on and we'll be on after for office hours if anybody has any other specific questions related to RBAC. Colin, did you have anything else you wanted to show before I take back over?
I think that was it. I'll be in the chat, so if y'all have any other questions, just reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like David is ready to beta test for you, Colin, if you need it.
Beautiful.
Okay, I am going to pass it over to Mark, who I skipped earlier in my excitement also for RBAC. And he is going to walk the new ImmyBot documentation page, which is docs.immy.bot. Let me throw that in the chat really quick. That's where this RBAC documentation that we just went over lives, as well as, I know, sorry about the light mode. I just had to get a new computer. Things have not been adjusted since then. But I just dropped that docs page in there and Mark's going to walk us through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we spent the last month and a half revamping this website, kind of going through and making things a lot more intuitive, updating whatever we could, wherever we could. So here on the landing page, not much has changed here, other than really the branding. You still whatever you click on, you'll still get to the main documents website. These are just some quick shortcuts on some commonly asked questions and requests. So if you click on the Get Started guide, it'll take you to that. And really, what we want to focus on here is the navigation. So we've separated everything out into how-to guides, specifics on integrations, administration for your instances, things like that. Just to make it a lot more intuitive on where you need to go to get this information or whatever information you may be needing. That's the biggest thing. We're working on getting some processes set up surrounding keeping the site up to date. Anything that may be coming up or any new how-tos that of commonly asked questions, things like that, commonly asked processes will go on here. And then we are also working on getting the UI and the instances set up so that they link to these pages. I'm sorry, so that they have the information there in your instance. We're really wanting this to be the one place where anyone can go, whether you're an ImmyBot customer or not, to see what we're about, to see how we work, to see what the capabilities are, and all that good stuff. So this is definitely a work in progress. This is always going to be a work in progress. It's definitely not perfect now, but this does go over core concepts. How to create software, how to create tasks, best practices for your instances, things like that. So yeah, that's basically it. Um, your the old links that you may have bookmarks or should be redirecting unless they have anchors. That was the one thing that we weren't able to get working correctly. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you do have an old link, they will still work and redirect appropriately. Though if it has an anchor, it's going to drop you at the top of the page. So you may need to scroll down or Control F for some information. But yeah, that's about it. Does anyone have any questions about this? Cool. All right.
Sweet. I will show you guys real quick. Let me have to restart my present. I have a screenshot of what it will look like when we get to the point that there's links within the actual product. So like with this RBAC one, there'll be some sort of hero banner pop-up that looks similar to this with the links out. Hopefully they'll bold those or something so they're a little bit more obvious, and those will take you directly to the docs site. But I, for one, am very excited about the docs site. It's something that we constantly get asked about, is documentation and access to documentation, and when is documentation going to be better? And Mark has come to save the day. And along with that, yeah, this is work. This is just a proof of concept. No one focus on that too much. But we here at ImmyBot are showing you guys things while we're building them, as you know. But I completely lost my train of thought with that. Oh, we have training videos coming out. That's where I was going. If you have an MSP that's onboarding new people that need to know more about ImmyBot, learn the basics, that July recording, which will live forever in community.immy.bot, is a good thing to bookmark that recorded link as part of your onboarding for a new employee. But there will be specific training videos that I'm hoping will just be linked directly into the docs page that correspond with the topics that you already know and care about and are looking up. But the SEO from having closed captioning on the bottom of that should pull up those videos. And so that's part of, I think the deadline on that is end of Q3, early Q4, to have our training videos up for all of the basic setup of ImmyBot, and then we'll get into more of the complex issues as we can. The broken icons. Yeah, this is not the first time the broken icons have been brought up. Okay, here are your usual helpful resources, all of the emails that you need to know and love, and I will send these links out so you can actually click on them. And here's our September graphic. Isn't it so cute? Tilly made it. Kiss the Cook. And this QR code will take you to the iCal. So it will download a file and you can upload that into whatever calendar that you need. But other than that, hang tight if you have office hours questions or you want to talk more about RBAC. But we are concluding a little bit early today. So have 15 minutes of your lunch break back or stay on and talk more Immy with us. But thank you guys.